And I'm done playing the piano. Welcome back to Style and Direction, a mentor podcast that doesn't have any stuffiness.
That was a fun intro. Like when Scott thanked Reggie for playing the intro to Comedy Bang Bang.
Except here, it's real.
It's real.
Yeah, I'm gonna just put away my MIDI keyboard real quick, and
clank.
That's
the sound of it. We put away.
Let me put away my guns. How many guns do you have on you? Don't forget to go to styleanddirectionjokesexplained.com for all these.
Oh, okay, I know what that's from. Improv Office, yeah.
And you say you like the first few seasons.
Yeah, I do. Took me a minute, but I got it.
Yeah. What kind of name is Nana anyway?
That means grandmother.
Jesus.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
this time it hasn't been a while.
It's not. Yeah, we're trying to do one. We're sticking to our schedule. I think every 2 weeks now. We definitely have one.
Yeah, and focusing less on doing interviews and stuff like that has really kind of made it a lot easier.
I actually haven't gotten any feedback on if people like this or not, but I've gotten less. Hey, when's the next one coming out? Questions.
Which is good.
So I'm hoping. Yeah, I'm hoping that people are enjoying this.
Yeah.
The new format. We did get I think you guys remember from our last episode, the one on Inspiration LA, we talked about Garments for No One, and they expressed interest in being a guest.
Mm-hmm.
And also we have our friend Doug, who was promised a long time ago to also be a guest.
So we're still going to do more interview episodes.
We'll do them. Yeah, we'll do them.
But just, this is just to get content out.
Yeah, and then plus I really like, if we're still recapping stuff, I really like the idea behind having a blog post that goes along with it in the form of show notes, or actually having a blog post and using this as kind of like the supplementary material.
And so this is going to be the second one today.
Yes it is.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be talking about what might be my favorite collar of all time, the Spearpoint Collar. It's something, you guys can read the blog post if you want to follow along. But it's really, I think it's one of the most unique collars because you really don't see it anymore.
No, it's one of those things where you almost have to get it custom made.
Yeah, and okay, so for those of you who don't know, a Spearpoint collar typically refers to a collar worn in the late 20s to maybe the mid to late 40s. It's basically kind of like a point collar, except that instead of being like a kind of a straight angle, from the back of the collar to the front, it kind of curves or teardrops. So it goes by different names. There's, some people call it the teardrop collar. I think I mentioned this in the blog post. I actually don't know why it's called Spearpoint collars.
Yeah. It might just be that point collar was a thing, and they were like, "Hey, wait a minute."
Yeah,
we can rebrand.
I know. I mentioned this too. I talked to Spencer, and I know a bunch of different menswear, vintage menswear experts.
Yeah,
and by that,
that's how we got into it.
Yeah, and these guys, they're not really like historians or professional historians or anything, but they've collected these things. They have, some of them have apparel arts magazines, or even the Holy Grail, which is the Esquire's Encyclopedia of Menswear from the 70s, which kind of goes into the history of menswear a little bit and the fads. I don't even know how they got that. How do you write down, oh, hey, in the 10s this collar was popular? I don't know, but I remember reading that, and they call it the Paramount collar, I think, because of how it was worn by movie stars a lot in the 30s. But then there's also stuff like the point collar, like Spencer said, which in illustrations, and again, these illustrations are done in the 70s. They do include a little bit of Lawrence Fellow stuff or advertisements, but this Holy Grail book, which literally, like I said, goes into the details of fads and style of menswear from the 1900s to the late 70s,
and even stuff it includes okay, a Spearpoint collar in 1937 would have been this length and stuff like that with this much collar spacing.
Right? Yeah,
it's
they have
crazy.
that. They have that, but what I'm trying to say is the illustrations are done in the 70s, so I don't know exactly how accurate the illustrations are.
Yeah, because we still have the scans of them, and if I recall correctly, looking at them, it did not look very 1930s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they get this stuff wrong because they find a bigger collar and they say it's very like, oh, I'm gonna wear it like the 30s, which is a good. We'll get into where you can find them in a second, but we're just gonna talk about the history first of all.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like Spencer says, like they don't really look like the ones you'd expect, or even like the ones that I typically wear.
Yeah.
Um, and so basically, yeah, this collar, has kind of a teardrop shape to it. It curves inward, and it's meant to be worn. No, actually, not meant to be, but you can wear it with a collar bar or a collar pin, whatever you want to call it. They had both back then. That's a big thing. People don't really know that every time they see someone with a collar bar, they assume it's like the safety pin kind or the eyelet kind, but there were
Mm-hmm.
clips back then.
Yeah.
Just because, not every guy wanted to pierce their fucking shirt.
Exactly, and most commonly the ones that we find in vintage and thrift stores are the clips.
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty, again, like you don't really see the pin one too often.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's basically, it's kind of like if you think about how in the 60s you had that kind of regular point collar that like guys and Mad Men would wear, like those
Mm-hmm.
kind of short points. Like the spear point was like the main shirt of like the 30s and 40s, not the only shirt, but typically the main shirt.
Yeah.
Just like I guess you can compare it to the spread collar nowadays, or like the
Mm-hmm.
medium spread, whatever you want to call it. Um, and it's very distinctive for the era, which makes it, again, like I said, very unique. And I would argue that it's classic in the sense of that it's an old look, but it's not really something that's stood the test of time, I guess. What would you say about that, Spencer?
Um, I mean, yeah, for the most part, like we were talking about, it kind of went out of fashion in like the late 40s. There was a kind of a resurgence in the 70s, but I mean, at that point, it was it was a very different collar.
Yeah.
As you go into the article, long collars were once again popular in the 1970s, but they did not have like the teardrop shape. They were generally like a little bit, you know, just wider all around.
Yeah.
Yeah, had like more of a collar spread, and usually they had some sort of lining put in them.
Yeah, they had those. I think you see them now, like the not only just the lining, but you'd have like those plastic collar stays that
Mm-hmm.
were like, like surgically inserted to be there forever, you know, and they say that the 70s is kind of like a 30s 40s resurgence. You get a lot of, you know, strong shoulders, nipped waists, wide legs, um, but the update again, like it was a bit bolder, or dare I say it, more disco-y. Cause so like if you compare it to the 30s one, um, they have kind of like a narrow collar in the back and it kind of slopes forward to the front.
Mm-hmm.
But the 70s ones, it's kind of thick all the way around. Like there's not a lot of taper when you go from the point to the back of the collar. It's kind of just an overall thicker looking collar.
Yeah.
And that's the main difference between the 70s and the 30s ones. And I do mention this too in the article. Like when you look at advertisements, different makers had different ways of doing the spear point.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not really technically. I mean, there could be ones that look very 70s that were worn in the 30s. You know, there were ones in the 30s that weren't as long as say Walt Disney's, and Walt Disney was a huge fan of the spear
And
point
again, I mean,
collar.
he probably got his custom made as well. At least some of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And again, like back then too, like most stuff, you know, me and Spencer like to say that back then stuff was made better, but a lot of it also was, most stuff was made to measure, made to order.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember reading, like, old magazines, or even like having my small growing collection of Esquire magazines where like there's advertisements for suits and they say like call to place your order or mail in your measurements and they'll make it for you.
Yeah, and like I have like a reprint of a Sears catalog from 1900 that has instructions on how to measure yourself for clothing, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. So basically, we're just saying that I wouldn't be surprised if you could pick the size of your collar if you had it made for
Mm-hmm.
you. Um, but yeah, and like I said, there were different ways of doing it. Funnily enough, most of the ones that I've seen in like that I've owned aren't that long and aren't that traditionally curvy spear pointy.
Yeah, it's really rare to find ones that are as long as a lot of guys in the vintage scene like to wear them, which is usually 4 or more inches. Typically,
Yeah, yeah.
typically you'd find like the ones that you find at a vintage store are maybe 3.5, if that. So it's like not really that long, but they usually do have a more distinctive shape, so it doesn't look just like a point collar you could get like at the mall today.
Yeah, I think the closest that you'd see, again, and we'll talk about it later, but I think you can compare it to like most military shirts nowadays, I think, or even like police officer uniforms, they still have kind of a spear point to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't look like a business collar on a shirt. So I guess that's one way it's kind of survived in a sense. Again, in in a smaller collar length, not or a shorter collar length, I should say.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I mean, all the ones I've had, I found two, like full button dress shirt ones that were pretty short. I don't know if they're European or not. And in general, during this time in the 30s and 40s, European clothing was in the same vein, but designed kind of weirdly
Oh
compared
yeah.
to like American stuff or English stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have two European pullover Spearpoint shirts. And those ones, I think one is long, but it doesn't have a collar band because it's kind of like a work shirt, and then the other one is really short. It's like like maybe 3 inches,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, and so you know you don't really see a lot of the ones that you would see like on Walt Disney or Fred Astaire or
Yeah, because I mean
Jimmy
they
Stewart.
were outliers. Like they wore shirt collars that were probably like at least 5 inches long.
Yeah, especially Walt Disney.
Yeah.
And then, Fred Astaire has a bit like of a more like classical one. It's a little bit shorter
Mm-hmm.
when you look at the pictures that I've included on the blog. But you can see on the blog there's a bunch of different styles. Some of them were soft, some of them were they weren't fused, but you'd call them Sanfordized, like they were kind of starched in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And when you find them, if you're lucky to find them today, they're still softer than you'd actually expect. Um, but but yeah, it's a fun shirt, and
Yeah.
I love like when you look at them. I write this in the blog post, but like the appeal to me is kind of it's kind of narrow, like the tie space is narrow,
Which
and it kind
works
of
really well with foreign hand tie knots.
really tight knots, and it kind of follows the curve, like the V shape of if you're wearing a waistcoat, if you're wearing a DB or even a regular single-breasted sport coat, it kind of follows the visual line there. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember reading, our one of our friends, Jared Aquaro, who does A Poor Man's Millions. He's an Australian style blogger.
I don't know.
Yeah. But he writes, he made a good observation saying that like compared to most collars, this one you see the full collar all the time
Mm-hmm.
compared to like a spread where like the edges kind of sit under the lapels. I'm like, oh, I never thought of it. I guess that's a good way of kind of explaining why it kind of follows this V shape, especially when you wear it with a collar bar. It kind of brings it all together.
Yeah, and I mean another thing, like even if you're not wearing it with tailoring, it just looks. I think it looks a lot better, just worn open. Like it doesn't like because it's like if you have a really short collar, you wear it open, it just kind of looks skimpy. You don't. It looks really cool, just kind of like lazily thrown over a jacket. You don't have to have
Yeah.
fucking magnetic strips stuck in there to make it look perfect all the time.
Yeah, 'cause I think it's because the shape kind of reminds me of the Cuban collar or the sport
Mhm.
collar, whatever you want to call it. Because I'm burping all the time again. Jesus.
Yeah, I gotta stop it.
Yeah, I
No
didn't
more
make the
soda.
sounds though. Yeah.
Okay.
But no, like it because the curve, because it kind of goes outward, it looks kind of like a Cuban collar, which does have a curve in its collar, and and like I wrote down like, oh man, almost 2 years ago,
Mhm.
the runaway collar, um, when guys like so when you wear it in that way, it's kind of cool because like Spencer said, like you can just wear it open, you can wear it over your lapels or whatever.
Yeah.
You can't really do that with a regular point collar. It looks kind of disco-y.
Mhm.
And then, I mean, obviously it's not as, when you compare it to like the OCBD, the collar points stay kind of in. But I think you're getting two different looks. Like if you do it with the spear point, it looks more
It looks
casual.
more casual, rakish.
Yeah, rakish, not quite 70s, but kind of 70s if you're really making those like assumptions. But then
Mhm.
if you do that with OCBD, you wear it unbuttoned, it kind of just looks like you're a preppy guy who's not
Yeah.
wearing a tie.
Just
So
a
it's like
preppy
again,
guy.
it's like yeah, for you. Go to Style and Direction Jokes Explained. um, and so yeah, it's just a fun collar that I think is pretty versatile. Like I wear it all the time,
Mhm.
pretty much all the time. I mean, I only wear two types of collar or three if you counts casual shirts, but I typically only wear spear points and OCBDs depending on what look I want to do. But typically it's always a spear point.
Yeah.
When do you wear yours, Spencer? I mean, do you wear yours anymore? I mean, I know
I
that
do.
we talk about how, your style has changed a lot.
Oh yeah, I mean now that I'm not working at Men's Warehouse, I don't do tailoring, I mean, nearly as much. I used to wear suits or sport coats 2 or 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
And my job at J Crew is, I mean, I could if I wanted to, but it's just very casual there.
Right.
So I'm kind of back to where I was in high school, not really wearing suits unless I'm going to an event or whatever. But I mean, I still wear mine. I have a couple that look really good casual, especially like in the summertime. I like wearing them with like sweaters or, something like that, just so it's not just a shirt and nothing else going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still
Well,
kind
that's
of
good.
like you. I kind of wear them interchangeably with those CBDs, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that the key to, just like any collar, I think the key to making them versatile is making sure that they're unlined,
Yeah.
or unfused, whatever you want to call it. Because you can have a lined collar that's soft,
Mm-hmm.
but, but yeah, like,
And even casual shirts, I prefer them to have a longer collar. Like I
yeah,
have, like I have a chambray work shirt that I got secondhand from Mr. Freedom, that has a Spearpoint collar, and I love that thing. I wish all my casual shirts had something like that.
yeah. I mean, the same thing here. Like, I would wear every shirt as a spear point just because as much as I like OCBDs, I find myself going to the spear points a little bit more because they're kind of like my signature shirt. Like, I wear them all the time. You look at my pictures. People have always commented on them, and they're probably the only thing that really hasn't changed all too much in my style journey. Like, I've changed,
Mm-hmm.
I obviously I don't really like the 30s structured jackets, or I'd argue that I never did. I just liked it because of the lapels. But, I still, while I put some of those away or retired them or gave them away, the thing I've never really given up are the Spearpoint collars. And I wear them with everything from my 60s sack suits to my Spear and McKay hop sack to my 40s jackets that I had the shoulder pads taken out of.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't think I'm ever gonna let those go because it's something that's always called out to me. Just like how I like low gorge notch lapels, I'm always gonna like the Spearpoint collar, and
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident that if I could, I mean, I work at Ascot Chang, so I could literally, if I wanted to and had the money, I could just get every shirt in a Spearpoint collar from
And
like
it's also like
Madras or
you
whatever.
you just said that you like to wear them with like 60 sack suits, and that's also a great way to not just be as
Oh
much as
yeah,
as much as I like the Ivy look. Sometimes you don't want to do the button down collar with rep stripe and like 3 roll 2 sack jacket, because sometimes, again, as we were talking about last episode, it can kind of get a little bit cosplay. Like it's a cool look, but sometimes you don't want to dress like you're a Harvard student in 1962.
right. Yeah,
So
no,
yeah, the spear point just adds something different to it.
yeah, and that's exactly why I wear it within my sack suit because I think that like I obviously I like the Ivy look like we just said, but I want to make it look like Ethan is wearing the Ivy look in his
Mm-hmm.
way, not that Ethan is doing a strictly 1962 outfit.
Yeah.
And so I mean that's what pushes me to keep them. It pushes me to keep commissioning them. I mean, I've gotten a
Mm-hmm.
few from Ascot Chang, and we can talk about how we got them. But yeah, I mean, it's really cool, and it's not for everyone, obviously. I mean, it's something that I have, and I've heard the sentiment from other people that like, oh yeah, I'm really tired of spread collars. I'm really tired of OCBDs. Like, what else is there? And
Mm-hmm.
I say the Spearpoint collar because unlike the club, I think the club is a little bit formal. Even if you can get club collars softly made, I don't think club collars look good worn without a tie.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're really hard to wear casually.
Yeah, and I feel like if you do, you look kind of hashtag menswear, kind
Yeah.
of like 2009 Tumblr, like just wearing
Mm-hmm.
random shirts. Um, so yeah, I mean, I've seen the sentiment, and as I say in the blog post, I think that the maybe not spear point, but like the desire for long point collars is certainly growing, and I don't think it's exactly because of me. Obviously not, but
It's
it's
just
hard.
because, I mean, short collars have been
Oh yeah,
in for like what, like 10, 15 years. So now it's just, going the other direction.
yeah. And I'm really curious to see, like, I want to know how everyone kind of got back to it, or if anyone even references the Spearpoint Collar, or acknowledges that it was a thing, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because like I say in the blog post, Edward Sexton I think has always done it in his like 60s 70s way. Um, you get guys. I think there's one guy who works for some. He was in the permanent style dinner.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I can't remember his
I think
name
it's like
though.
Michael. I think his name is Michael Brown, and I forgot if he has his own tailoring shop or if he worked as a cutter somewhere else. But he mentions in in the little like talking head that he designed this new collar because it's meant to be worn with like tight knot ties, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that's basically almost a spear point right there.
Yeah. I think he
Almost.
calls it a spear point, doesn't he? Or
Do-
long point or
I think
something?
he calls it a long point. And
Yeah.
then speaking of long point, Drake's now has been doing it for like the past I think 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think they've always had it, but they like as like a custom option. But they've like branded themselves like as like bringing this thing back, and
Yeah,
they
because
call it
I
like
mean, I would not be surprised. And I'm gonna go as far as to say I know this is happening. I feel like most places that do custom shirts and offer several different collar styles have almost always offered just a long collar, just because
hmm
like yeah, why not? Like they were like we were talking about earlier, they were in 40 years ago, and I'm sure there are guys that just kept wearing them, and might as well offer the option if you already have the pattern for it.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I'm sure that there are plenty of older guys out there who still wear their shirts from the 70s,
Mm-hmm.
and they prefer that, and they've never liked the small collar thing. And then also like it's also an alternative again to the spread collar. Spread collar is a bit like it's kind of modern. Most spread collars are medium. I guess most people wear like the medium spread, not the super extreme ones.
Yeah,
But
it's
they're
not 2009 anymore.
yeah, but they're these shirts tend to be longer, but they have the spread, which some people don't like,
Mm-hmm.
because there's that common fallacy where you have to wear fat knot to make up for the space. I don't. Oh, I'm burping again.
Here I
Burpees.
go burping again.
Yeah. But yeah, like, these guys like they like they think that they have to wear a big fat knot to make up for the space, but it's just not. I wouldn't do that. And then guys are unopposed to wearing a four in hand knot with spread
Mm-hmm.
collars because they don't like to see the extra space around the knot or
Or
whatever.
they
Like
or
the
they are under the impression that a four in hand is like a fucking baby knot. It's like, oh, that's the first knot you learn, and you have to move on to like a half Windsor, full Windsor, whatever.
yeah, that's bullshit.
Yeah, fuck off.
Yeah, if you're reading this and you're just shut it off right now. Um, but yeah, I mean, so like this again, the Spear Points kind of offers an alternative, and which is why I like it. Like, I mean, I have nothing against spread collars. I know Spencer has one from or two or something from Proper Cloth,
I have
and
one.
the look isn't okay. One, whatever. One minus two.
Okay.
It's negative one. Um, but it's an alternative that's really different. Again, like even though, like we just said, people are offering similar styles, people don't really wear them
Mm-hmm.
too often. I mean, it's only kind of like either the designers themselves are kind of rakish guys, but it's slowly making a comeback, and I really like it. Just not really because I feel left out or feel like or not left out, but like on my own. But it's cool to see people like kind of move away from the spread collar
Mm-hmm.
thing, because I guess in a few years we're gonna look back. It's like, oh, that's definitely 2010s menswear or something like that,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
2015 or whatever, and yeah, so it's something that you people should try out if you really want to. And unfortunately, the only place to really get it is bespoke or custom made. So let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about that now. Let's talk about where you can get them.
So Ethan and I, the first place we both tried, I think, was from Luckshire, which
Yeah,
at the time that we bought them for was most known for for their shirts, but has
but now they're like
since yeah
totally
moved.
custom.
Yeah, exactly. So you could get full suits, whatever, pants, anything made from them. But at the time they were known for their shirts. And so like many of the other places that we got these shirts from, they were marketed directly at swing dancers or people who were
Yeah,
into vintage menswear. So they would be on, Fedora Lounge being like, "Hey, we make these shirts in a Spearpoint collar." And then
buy them
they
from
would be
us.
yeah, exactly. It's like they're based on like original patterns or whatever, stuff like that.
Well, I've got a little tidbit about that actually.
Oh, fun.
So, well, about the whole Luxshire thing, because I remember getting in contact with this guy Josh Marr, who actually went to Spencer's High
Yeah, and
School.
that's how I got into vintage, and I think Spearpoint Collars as well. So.
Yeah. So, again, like I think I talked about that. I talked about this before, where I met this guy who went to Dapper Day in full vintage. I asked him how he got his stuff because I couldn't believe that there were garments that were still in existence,
Mm-hmm.
that were made, from the 40s or whatever. Anyway, I asked him where he got his Spearpoint Collar shirts because obviously I couldn't believe if those were vintage. Like I can understand like a tweed jacket surviving 60 odd years or whatever, but not really a cotton shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And while he did admit that he does have a few vintage ones, he got them all from Luxshire, and I'd never heard of it before. Fedora, like Spencer said, like they were marketed in the Fedora Lounge. I'm sure at the time Style Forum guys used them, but the
Mm-hmm.
site was kind of janky before. But it did say that I think the cheapest shirts, like just basic Oxford cloth, were $70 for a custom shirt.
Which is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean even now that's an insane price. Very very cheap, very
Mm-hmm.
affordable. I think that they make their stuff in Asia probably.
I think India.
India, sure. Okay. I mean, just like, I think Proper Cloth also does the same thing. Does it? No, they do.
I
Do
don't
they in
know.
America? I don't know. There's a Blammo episode on that.
Yeah.
But yeah. So at the time, I really wasn't concerned about who made what or whatever. But at the time, even though it was more affordable now, to a college student who was getting into menswear, it was kind of like, oh man, $70 is kind of expensive. So I saved up for it because I really wanted this shirt. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, okay, well, I have a white long collar shirt from the 80s from my dad that I wear that's part polyester.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you know what? I don't need a white one, so I got a blue Oxford one. And I made the mistake, and this is how Luxshire works. You get to pick whether or not you want to do body measurements or you want to do shirt measurements. I honestly thought at this price, I'm like, I'm not gonna measure my body. I like slim fit. I'm wearing H&M slim fit shirts. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna measure my H&M shirt. I measured that shirt, which was partly elastic, so it probably was a lot slimmer when laid flat than it is when it's actually being worn.
Yeah.
And you have to remember that regular cotton, while can be stretchy to an extent, it's not as stretchy as a polyester shirt
Nope.
or a spandex shirt. So the shirt I got was like skin tight. I was almost impossible to wear. Luckily, I wasn't like too out of shape back then.
Wasn't the neck too big though, or something like that?
No, I think the neck was fine because the neck of the shirt fit me fine.
Okay,
But
it was
everywhere
just
else,
everywhere else.
I moved the buttons over like as far as they could be, and I
Yeah.
was like, well, I felt bad because I just spent $70 on this thing, and I always wear a tie with it, so you never would see how it was bulging at the shirt at the buttons,
Mm-hmm.
placket. And that was like my shirt for the longest time. But
Yep.
Luxshire doesn't have any remake policy, at least from what I remember. It's because it's like you asked for it that way. You're gonna make it.
Yeah.
It's
Victim
not
blaming.
really like, yeah, and it's like Jesus.
Yes,
It's not
yeah,
really
sorry.
like a bespoke suit where they make allowance in there. It's not like how we at Ascot Chang we always make like 4 shirts for somebody. We have one act as a fitting shirt, and we always make it a little bit bigger so people. Plus, there's a fucking physical person measuring you. It's real
Mhm.
bespoke service, not some online shit. And of course, people have gotten stellar things from Luxshire because
Yeah, like I
they're-
got 2 or 3 shirts from Luxshire that I don't really wear anymore because I don't wear white shirts anymore. But I mean, they fit well.
Yeah, see, so I mean, there's, when you do it correctly, and I did it incorrectly, and so that kind of turned me off to Luxshire pretty much forever.
Yeah.
And also, I was like $70, and waiting 4 to 5 weeks for a shirt didn't seem worth it to me. And it was like that. I would get along wearing my dad's 70s, 80s shirts, whatever, that had long collars. And then my one blue Oxford Spearpoint until I found Natty shirts, which
Yeah.
was on.
But
online,
let me
on
get
Fedora Lounge.
into
Yeah.
my things with Luxshire.
Sure.
So I've discovered them. I don't know, my junior year of high school, I believe, and the first 2 shirts I ordered was just a plain poplin, machine washable. That's how it was advertised. Detachable collar shirt. I was like, cool, I can wear it with a collar or I can wear it as a band collar. It's like a cool workwear thing. And then I got,
Sure.
yeah. And then I got a weird choice, which was a white Oxford French cuff Spearpoint collar shirt. Because I wasn't like aware that at the time that fabrics could be more casual or whatever. And I wore that thing all the time. And then the next shirt I got was just a barrel cuff one of the same fabric because I was like, I want to wear this casually, and I was tired of rolling up my French cuff sleeves. Um, so I mean,
basically, a lot of the same mistakes. We both did the mistakes that most people get when they're first starting out, and
yeah,
which is why guys starting out should not do custom clothing.
no. And so I mean, I did body measurements. I think I had my dad measure me or something like
Okay,
that.
well, that was smart.
And yeah, so I mean, it worked out pretty well for me. I did get them slim fit. And they were, I mean, they were slim. They were never uncomfortable, but I'm like, now I like blousier shirts.
Yeah,
So I mean, they're hard to wear. And again, I just don't wear white shirts anymore. So
that's true.
yeah, at the time, I think I was like kind of obnoxious, and I was like, why would you need to wear anything but a white shirt? Because I was like, I read something on fucking like Art of Manliness about how Don Draper only wears white shirts, and I was like, that's the way to do it.
And I want to fuck
Yeah.
secondaries.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was so that's our experience with Luxshire. They had like I remember they had like a dedicated page just for Spearpoint shirts, like
Mhm.
super vintage. Like they have the side gusset thing that only found on vintage shirts.
Yeah,
or
they're like
whatever.
pullover style. Like they offered like straight like European 1930s shirts that were super long with a pullover style.
Yeah, I don't know exactly who made their collar, but from what I heard, and this could be wrong. If you know anything, feel free to message us. But for natty shirts, which is definitely the budget cheap option,
Mhm.
which we'll get to right now. But I heard that they were designed by Matt Deckard. Who
I
we
think it was
know-
Luxshire
Oh,
that Matt Decker did. I don't we could be wrong. I don't know.
I don't know, but I remember distinctly. One of these things, some vintage person had like sent in, their Spearpoint collar or their desired Spearpoint collar, which is then what they used for future ones. And this is
Mhm.
the one that I like the most. Like it's curved, it's kind of pointy,
It has like a spread to it a little bit.
a little bit, yeah. And it's not inaccurate. There's a lot of, like in the blog post, there's a lot of different examples of Spearpoint collars. Um, so
I think Mark Chevalier said that the Natty one looks a lot more European than the Luxshire one.
that makes sense. I can see
Yeah.
that. Yeah, because I think it's the Luxshire one isn't is a little bit has more of a blunted edge to it compared to the
Mhm.
Natty's, like the really pointy ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, Natty, their website kind of sucks. And remember, this podcast isn't sponsored. We can shit talk whatever we want.
Yeah.
But yeah, the website's kind of like, it kind of feels like this, like a discount. It basically is. It's like a discount.
I mean, it's like you can get them for $30.
Basically, yeah. Yeah, every shirt there is like $29.99 to like $39.99, and then if
Mhm.
you get 3 shirts, you get
free
you get
shipping.
free shipping. If shipping's like $15-20 or whatever, and then if you do 5 shirts, you get the 6th one for free, but then you just pay the $20 for shipping.
Yeah.
So if you do the 6, you basically get them for about $30 each,
Mhm.
and that's how I amassed my large collection of Spearpoint collars.
Yeah.
I think with the way they operate is they buy like the last rolls of like whatever from like random mills, and then they just make those ones, because if you go on like every couple of weeks, you'll notice that there's new shirts and there's shirts that you saw before that were not there anymore.
Yeah, so it's like I think you got a chambray shirt from them. Like, oh, sweet. I didn't get it at the time, but I was like, when it comes back, I'm gonna get that chambray, and it never has. So,
Actually, they did come back with chambray. I got it in denim.
oh damn.
And,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I made well, we'll talk about the issues now. So, what I did, because I didn't want to repeat what the fuck happened with Luxshire, is I made the measurement super generous. I was conscious enough to be like, okay, I know that my neck measurement is correct. I know my shirt length measurement is correct. I know that my arms are good. It was just the chest body area that
Mhm.
was bad. So I made it 20 inches, and I'm typically, I've always been like a 36 short, 38 short, whatever. So I was like, okay, so my body's a 38. So I'm going to make all these shirts 40 inches from the chest, waist, and hips.
Mhm.
And that's like perfect. And it was great. Like these shirts fit me completely. they're blousy in the way that I like. I'm not sure. Well, okay, so while I got that down, they definitely have some quality control issues. Um, so I have one of the first shirts I got from them was a white broadcloth one because I got tired of wearing my dad's polyester shirt.
Yep.
And there I think I washed it and then the threads shrank, like the sewing threads, and so like it kind of puckers all over. Um, it's still 100% cotton, but it kind of feels really cheap. Not like H&M cheap, but feels kind of like, I don't know. It just
The
feels
shirts
weird.
have no texture to them,
Well, it
which is
also
some.
depends where you go because like again, I don't know where each mill or each fabric is sourced from. They
Mhm.
say like the country, like these are Japan, these are Italy, and I'm like I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
But like I have some shirts from them that feel really good, like comparable to like the really like Ascot Chang's more affordable side, like our dead stock fabric, because the fabric could be dead stock, could just be that old. And I
Mhm.
have some shirts that just feel like Men's Warehouse cheapo shirts.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's really just luck of the draw of what you get. I've had shirts that I got in once. I got like I remember seeing a Drake shirt a long time ago before I knew what Drake's was, and it had kind of like a bold stripe to it, and I bought a shirt like that, and I got it in, and it was like a one ply fabric, like it was basically see through, like it was awful. I couldn't wear it. It was so sheer and thin, and then they made the mistake of making all the shirts in this order. They made all of the cuffs and collars fused.
Yeah.
So it was weird to see like such a stiff collared shirt on like such a sheer, delicate fabric. It just didn't work out, so I had to like junk it or give it away or whatever. And then some shirts also like they shrank in the collar. Um, Funnily enough, I think all of my non interlined collar, like basically all of my unlined shirts shrank at the collar, but all my fused ones didn't. And I don't know what that is all about. I think it
That's
should
what
be
it's
the
there for.
opposite.
That's what the inner lining
Yeah, it
is there
protects you.
for.
And so
Yeah.
some of them have shrunk disproportionately to the rest of them. Like some of them I can still wear, some of them were too small to wear. You know, it's not really recommended, and you know, if you want to, you can try it. I mean, again, that's where a lot of my shirts are from. They've been going strong, and I say strong with quotation marks. I mean, they're still here, like 3 to 4,
Mhm.
almost 4 years later. Um, and yeah, I mean, they're okay. Like
I
the
mean,
buttons
again,
pop off
for
really
about
easily.
$30 per, it's hard to go wrong.
Yeah, and they are custom. Like you get to pick
Yeah.
the size you want, you know, the level of closeness. Like I always buy mine classic fit because I don't want any repeats of what happened to me with Luxshire.
Mhm.
Um, I did try OCBDs with them, but they were okay. I mean, but they also those ones also shrank, so I never wear them. Um, and there was like one more point I wanted to say about Natty shirts. Yeah, they're made in like Iran or something. I don't know. They're made in
I
somewhere
don't know.
weird, like Bangladesh maybe or something. But oh yeah, so the Spearpoint collar isn't a listed option. On their like selections they have like club, OCBD, spread, whatever, point collar, but they don't have Spearpoint. So what you have to do is you have to mention that in the extra requirements page when you're placing your order. And I always make the cautious move of emailing them. Again, I haven't ordered a shirt from them in 2 years, 2 or 3
Yeah.
years. But that's basically what I did, and this is taken almost verbatim from the Fedora Lounge article, like their affiliate page where you can ask Natty about whatever. Um, so yeah, it's kind of like a weird workaround, but it worked for me every time. I never got the wrong collar. I always made sure to write it down on the order form and email them saying, "Hey,
Mhm.
this is Ethan. This is my order number. I want to make sure that you guys know I want these all spear points, 3.5, 4 inches, 4.5 inches long. I do have a 4.5 inch shirt, which is
It's crazy.
crazy.
The
I
first
it's a
time,
four.
the
It's
first time you wore it, I was wearing my Luxshire Spearpoint, which I think is 4 inches, and you were like, "Look how much longer my collar is than yours."
Yeah, and it's
And
also so it's a 4 inch long contrast collar on like a
yeah.
Dobby stripe shirt, so it looks very dandy.
Uh huh.
I'd
Was
still wear it with like a suit, you know.
Did you wear that? That was the shirt you were wearing in your articles of style, or was that the Ralph Lauren
Yeah,
one?
no, it's article style.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fun shirt.
Yeah.
still in the closet.
Nice.
But yeah, so that's natty. Again, not really recommended, but
Yeah.
if you've got nothing to do,
I
or,
think I
and
have.
not a lot of money.
I think I have 6 or 7 shirts from Natty, and most of them are pretty good. My first batch, I made the mistake of not specifying that I wanted my collars and cuffs unfused, which I got, but I did not specify the placket. And so I got a fused placket, unfused collar, which makes it just kind of sit really weird if you wear it open. The
Mm.
second one went pretty well. The only thing is I requested, the pleats you see on your cuffs near the button? I
Yeah.
requested like micro pleats because that's what you would find on vintage shirts, but they put it on the wrong side. And I don't know how that happened.
It's like they literally just said, "Oh, okay,
Yeah,
we'll add those."
and just put it on the wrong side of the cuff. Other than that, they're great. Like I said, I still wear them occasionally. They're not bad. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was basically it for
Oh yeah,
thirty
they do a
dollars.
weird thing where if you ask for a flat pocket shirt, they like crisscross the pattern, and I'm
Oh
assuming it's
yeah,
because they don't care enough to make sure the pattern lines up. So they just
it's
do it diagonally just so
it's
they can be like
it's a
they can
weird
just put it
stylistic
there.
choice, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of different ways. I mean, I've seen a friend do like kind of like a rockabilly sleeve where there's like 3 buttons on one cuff kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah, I've
Because
got
they
my.
are custom. I'm sure you can ask them. I got reverse box pleats on some of them for like an action back, which doesn't do much, but it's still interesting.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
but it's
but
not bad for $30.
yeah, I
Wait
mean
wait
that's
for
cheaper
like
than
sign up for
anything
their
at the mall.
email list, and when they have a sale, get a couple shirts.
Yeah. Again, your mileage may vary. I don't. I think they probably don't pre-shrink their fabrics. Maybe that's probably why it shrinks so much. So
Could
maybe
be.
compensate for that or something. But let's talk about my experience with Ascot Chang.
Yep.
So obviously nothing is going to compare to having the bespoke experience, um, but it's something I really want to talk about because it's great and I think it makes the best shirts ever.
Okay.
Yeah. So for those of you who already know, I work for Ascot Chang, a bespoke shirt company, and they it's it's my first experience doing anything or being familiar with bespoke. Um,
Mhm.
a lot of my friends, I guess menswear colleagues, they have their experience with custom shirting, but this is literally like because LA doesn't have a lot of it. This is my first real exposure to like picking out your fabrics, picking your collars, or designing them, and yeah, that whole custom, cool, bespoke experience. And obviously, they didn't have a Spearpoint collar option, so I knew going in that it wasn't gonna be as easy as just saying, "Hey, I want a Spearpoint collar,"
Mhm.
because they don't have one. Like they have the long point one, but they didn't have this one. So it wasn't like Natty or Luxshire where they had that pre-existing model for the vintage community. Um, but what I found was we were trying to figure it out, and they had a collar that was very similar to it, probably from like the 80s, 90s, because there are some 80s, 90s shirts that look like spear points just with a little bit of stylistic differences. And I
Yeah.
basically chose that because I didn't send in my collar. I said like, okay, why don't we like do something like that? And we took a picture of my collar and said like, okay, just make the best of both worlds, and just like I want this. I want like a kind of a dramatic curve or whatever. And it came in, and I liked it. It's definitely different. It
Mhm.
looks very like an American Spearpoint collar. I know that some like Cody Wellama, the bespoke hat maker, says that he prefers this iteration, the first iteration of my Ascot chain collar, because that's just what he prefers. He doesn't really like the kind of European dandy looking ones. He likes the straight ones. They look kind of more similar to what you see from the 70s, but again, a little bit more curve, more taper.
Yeah.
And I got
And
that
so they were
in a
both linen, right?
no, I got one in like a basket weave. The reason I say it's
Okay.
basket weave cotton is because it's not exactly Oxford, because it's not in the Oxford part of the book that I bought it from. And then I got one in navy blue linen, and they both have a flap button pocket, and they have the white one has a monogram underneath the pocket. and
Mm-hmm.
I like that one. But like Spencer says, I don't really wear white shirts very often. Um, and the blue
But it's a
one is
good thing to
cool.
have.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's cool. It's great. That way you have it. But the navy blue one is nice. I also found out that I don't really like wearing linen shirts. I'd rather wear a linen sport coat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I mean, they were cool. I mean, they were, every year the employees get to have like, like kind of like a suit supplier J Crew. You get to pick out your stuff for the season or whatever. So we got I got two shirts. And they were, yeah, they're nice. I don't wear them very often. My rationale was, okay, I probably will need a white shirt at some point, and I already have the blue stripe one. I have two versions of that. I have a bunch of stripes and checks. I should get like
Mm-hmm.
a nice white one because my white one, like I said, from Natty, puckers because of the shrunken threads or whatever, or cheap construction, whatever you want to call it. So I got that, and the blue linen was I want like a summer shirt, and one I could wear like casually, wear it open without a tie, and so I got that, and they are nice, and they sit there, and I break them out like once in a blue moon, but
I mean
yeah.
that blue that the navy one. I know you said you don't like wearing linen shirts, but that's a great summer shirt.
Oh yeah, I mean I probably will wear it this season,
Yeah.
but I mean yeah, here's inspiration for me to do it, or
Mm-hmm.
motivation I should say. And then the second iteration, which I made this past year, 2017, 2018, it's 2019 now.
Yep.
I was like, you know what? I really like my natty shirts. I want that, at least a collar done in the Ascot Chang way. And again, when I first got the first batch of shirts, like I was blown away by like the construction by it, and the like it just feels so different. Like also feeling a shirt that like you felt the fabric beforehand, so you know what you're
Mm-hmm.
expecting or what you're gonna get, and just like it felt like a real expensive shirt, and a really well made one. So by this time I was like super excited, and I already was like already planning it for a long time, and I got um Oxford shirts because I started, I was into this whole Ivy thing. I still am, obviously, and I was before, but like Oxford shirts tend to like break in really well over time. Like me, Spencer, and I both have vintage Brooks Brothers Oxfords that
Yep.
are like the most comfortable shirt. So I was like, okay,
Super soft.
yeah, I want that, and we have, we partner with a lot of mills like Thomas Mason and Alumo, but I wanted like our vintage dead stock one because I'm like, okay, obviously vintage is cool and it's, a little bit more interesting. So I guess I got two. I got a blue and a pink one, and I
Mm-hmm.
got it in the 4-inch Spearpoint collar, and I traced my natty collar, and I annotated with measurements. Okay, here, like it curves like this. At the lowest point, it's this length. And this is the amount of spread or whatever.
Yeah.
And just through the picture, they were able to redo it. Like I didn't have to send in my shirt at all.
Hmm.
So it's a totally new collar for my pattern, but it's perfect. It's like I said, like everything's super soft. There's no fusing in it. Um, I kind of like how it kind of curls up at the edge because it's super casual. It's able to be worn open, and it's it's even better. And I added the pleated patch pocket now instead of just a regular flap to kind of,
Yeah, which looks very cool.
yeah. And they are literally like my favorite shirt now, because of how well made and how nice they are. Even though I've worn them a few times and washed them, I still reserve them for like fancier things. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I'm
I
going to
get
go
that.
somewhere, just because like I have my natty shirts, I don't want to wear them. I wear the natty ones every day, and if those fall apart, then I'll be okay. But I don't want the Ascot Chang ones to fall apart,
Mm-hmm.
and they won't. They'll last me a long time. I just for when you first get your car or whatever, you want to be careful.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Um.
because you got one that was also the perfect Ethan shirt because it's blue striped, correct?
Yes. Yes. It is. It's
And
like
it's the
yeah.
same
It's
stripe. Yeah, as far as you know, it's the same stripe that Brycelands use. Or we're not supposed to say that. We could cut that part out.
no. No. I can say it.
Okay,
Uh.
cool.
Yeah. I guess I'm leaving this whole part in there.
Yeah.
No. It's the same fabric as far as I know, or it's at least
Mm.
very similar. I think I saw them in person. It might not be. Um. But I mean, everyone has a blue stripe shirt, and it's really it's the perfect shirt. We're talking about Spearpoints today, but I guess we're talking about shirts too.
Yeah.
But
Spear
it
points
really
are
is because it
shirts.
goes with everything. Yeah, it really goes with everything. I like, the width is really good to work with a variety of different patterns. The width of the stripes I'm talking about,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I haven't really worn my shirt casually yet, just because I don't wear it like out as much as I'd like to. But they've been washed a few times. It really feels nice to have a shirt collar that isn't too tight. Like it might be on like with bespoke shirts, they come in and they are made a little bit bigger in the neck because they're meant to be
Mm-hmm.
shrunk down a little bit. Like even if they are pre-shrunk, things will shrink over time a little bit. The more and more you wash them and dry them. And so I think after a couple washes, they're finally at like my actual neck size now. So it's really good. It's really comfortable. Something that I'm not used to because all the natty shirts are either right like they're perfect or they're slightly too small, but I wear them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean nothing compares to Ascot Chang. And now, if you guys want to, and you guys are in the market for bespoke Spearpoint Collar shirts, you can just go into a store and say, "Hey, I want Ethan Wong's one," and then either they'll email me or you can tell me what your order is, and I'll email our Hong Kong team to be like, "Hey, they want like just use the one for my pattern,"
There you go.
and that might be the closest we get to use code Ethan at checkout or something.
Yep.
But I mean, they're really cool. And like we said way at the beginning of this episode, bespoke or custom is really the only way to go to get a Spearpoint collar. I
Because I mean, you can find vintage, but usually they're either going to be really boring, as in just like, oh, maybe you'll find like a plain white one. They're going to be really beat up, or this is most often I find tiny, like really small, like 13.5 inch neck.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we have a friend who owns a film costuming warehouse, and almost all the spear points in that warehouse are for like children, like 14-inch necks.
Mm-hmm.
Could be just because if they're worn for costumes, they're washed a lot, so over time they just get smaller and smaller. Um, so yeah, I mean, I've been lucky enough to have at least four in my wardrobe that I just didn't wear as much anymore. I mean, at least two of them, I should say, and so they're gonna
Mm-hmm.
go off to new owners at vintage stores. Um, but I mean, yeah, like I said, they're a really cool shirt.
Yeah.
They're really different. It kind of fits in with my whole aesthetic of kind of updated vintage or whatever. And like I said, like I don't really care for period accuracy anymore, even though that's why I liked it because it was like, oh, I like
This is
that.
the shirt they wore in the 30s. It's
Yeah.
cool.
But now it's like, oh, I want that vibe, but I want to wear it with like my soft shouldered suits. I want to wear it with my Ivy Sack suits,
Yeah.
with my jeans even, like so it's become literally my trademark shirt that a couple of friends, especially like our friend Andy, has really been inspired by and has hoped to find ways to kind of achieve the same look. You
Yeah,
know.
and we should talk about other brands that are doing something like this Spear
Oh
Point.
yeah.
And speaking of our friend Andy, he recently let us know that several Vietnamese tailors offer something pretty close to the classic Spear Point collar.
Oh yeah. You can see all the pictures and everything, and basically almost everything we talk about on the blog post.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, like we said, Edward Sexton does kind of one very similar. Um, Jared Aquaro for that article that we talked about earlier, his own article on A Poor Man's Millions. I couldn't find pictures of it, but I know his bespoke tailor is 100 Hands.
Mm-hmm.
I personally have never used them. Obviously, I'm probably never going to because I work for Ascot Chang and I like my Ascot Chang shirts. But that's if you're near one or wherever the hell they are. I think they're like in Stockholm. I don't know where they are, but they have it there. Drake's has theirs, and I have definitely
Yeah, I
worn
was
my
gonna say
Drake
you have
shirt.
one.
I have theirs. It's kind of more like a point collar combined with a spread collar.
Well, because
Um,
as far as I can tell, it's their button-down collar minus the buttons.
and I told you that.
Yeah.
I remember, I think Bruce Boyer said something like that, where I forgot where it was exactly, but I remember Bruce Boyer writing something and saying that there's like a new shirt. It's like the OCBD, but without the buttons. And it's kind of like that because if you look in the OCBD, it curves outward.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't have the buttons to give it the roll because the buttons are kind of placed kind of high, and so like when you button it down, like the conflict between the long length of the collar and like the shorter placement of the button will give you that roll.
Yeah.
But you don't have that with these collars, and with Drake's, I'm not sure if it's the same shirt. I haven't compared the two, but they look very similar. I'm talking about their point collar and their OCBD. But do they have a version of it now? I have worn mine with a collar bar, or I've tried to. It doesn't. It works, but it feels like it's like fighting gravity a little bit, just because it has a lot of spread to it, and compared to like a regular Spearpoint. But yeah, that's another option.
Yep.
Is there any other options? I don't really think there are.
I think we basically talked about everything that's mentioned in the article.
Yeah, I mean, if you have your own bespoke tailor, I'm sure they could do it. Based on pictures.
Yeah.
If they're really good.
It's like a barber, just show them a picture.
Yeah, like Spencer said, the Vietnamese tailors who wear, in general, we gotta talk about Vietnam in a future episode, because they're really having like a resurgence in classic menswear, vintage tailoring.
Yeah.
And Andy says they all read the blog, which is a very, very, very cool thing to hear.
Yeah, it sure is.
But they do Spearpoint collars, and one guy in particular does it, and he wears it really well. So yeah, I mean, if you have your own tailor who can do it, I'm sure they could do it. And if not, one of the Ascot Chang will be happy to serve you.
Is that your motto?
Yeah, that's my motto for him.
Okay.
And use code Ethan at checkout
for 10% off your stamps.
Yeah, can't get you a discount on shirts though, but I can.
Yeah.
You can use my shirt pattern for your collars. Well, that was pretty good. That was a pretty good wrap up of our Spearpoint thing.
Yeah, I think let's just talk about how good the episode was.
Yeah. Good job.
We both did a great job.
Very, very good. Good stuff. As always, you guys can read the article on Spearpoint collars on the blog, streetexpressa.wordpress.com. Also, please give us a rating on SoundCloud or Apple Podcasts, whichever one you want. It
Apple
really
Podcasts
helps us out.
Is probably better.
It's probably better, but as I've seen, people also listen to it on SoundCloud, so that's kind of interesting.
Why not?
Yeah. So wherever you want, and just if you want to give us feedback or content that you really are looking for, feel free to follow us at Style and Direction. That's A&D on Instagram, or you can do styleanddirection@gmail.com.
Yeah, send us questions. We check it occasionally.
Yeah.
We got questions, we check it more.
Yeah, exactly. You can follow me at Ethan M. Wong.
I'm at Spencer DSO.
This is all Instagram.
Yep.
Because we don't use MySpace anymore.
Yeah.
And yeah. Again,
that's gonna be it.
Yeah, that's gonna be it.
Hey, I'm getting a call from my work, so you do the end by yourself. Be right back.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye. Time to play the outro.